This presentation is on engaging online learners through presentations. So we use absorb activities such as reading, listening, and watching to help students get information and comprehend the knowledge that we want. And teachers and designers are in control of this. So four main types for online learning would be presentations, readings, stories by a teacher, and field trips. So we need to use absorb activities to get motivated learners to obtain crucial and up-to-date information they need to prepare them for the do activities that they would complete afterwards, to orient them on the goals, set up the context of what they'll be learning, give them the baseline vocabulary, and introduce new principles and ideas and the steps for the do activity. So readings before we get into presentations. And this little comic said it's called reading. It's how people install new software in their brains. I feel that's very true for today's learners. So we need to use readings to help our learners present complex and difficult information, to give them a deeper knowledge on a subject, and when they are motivated enough to read. So what you know includes the things you can recall, which goes along with Bloom's ideas of remembering and understanding. So best practices, we need to simplify how they can get the documents they need to read and make sure that there are plenty of examples. And we always want to make sure that we are using skills and being social learners. So we need to create and share readings, comment on and discuss readings, which we'll talk about, link readings to relate to resources, edit and annotate the documentation, and engage in microlearning. So here is an example of a thing called actively learn. And on this, a teacher can assign a reading, and then students can comment and have a discussion based off of what they're understanding or what they're confused on here. These are some other annotations that students can do while they're reading in a classroom, or you can tell them to mark it up and send in their stuff if it's online. And here's another example of a teacher who's already annotated something. So stories by a teacher, and stories are important because they relate to everybody. They give human experiences with real information and make it personable. And when a teacher is telling a story, that's the type that is an absorbed activity. So we need to use stories to demonstrate the importance of a context, give those concrete examples, make it realistic and humanize the subject and encourage them. And there are lots of different types of stories out there, and I'm sure you have heard all of them from different students before. So best practices that we need to do when using stories, make sure that we're telling effective stories, that we polish our telling. Don't just settle for the first time that we tell it. Keep developing it and make it better. And I like this because it relates to when I was younger and now around campfires we would hear stories and everything, and they were authentic, creative, made an emotional and personal connection, inspired us to take action, and took us on a journey. And that's what you want to try to do when you are telling stories in your classroom or online to learners. So another thing that we can do for an absorb activity is go on field trips, and that's kind of hard to do if you're doing online. So we can do virtual classrooms. Take out of the virtual classroom and go on virtual tours, for example, visit museums, have them go outside of their own classroom. But you have to make sure that you're requiring learning of your students. You're not just having them visit to visit. Make sure you're using different types of media to give to them, tell them what is important, and annotate the exhibits that you want them to go through. Here are some examples of virtual tours I've done with my kindergartners. We went to the Statue of Liberty and also to the White House, and they absolutely loved being able to learn more about those places. So presentations, this is the big one that I would like to talk about. We convey a lot of information through the presentations, like I'm doing right now. And we can demonstrate things to learners. So hopefully I'm demonstrating different things to you through my presentation. And there are lots of different types of presentations, but the two I will focus on are the top two, slideshow and physical demonstrations. So right now I'm showing you a physical demonstration of my mouse over it. But a slideshow, we need to make sure we're using graphics, not just words. Narrate clearly, give animation when it is relevant, and make sure we're always building up the display to help build up the reader as well and the learner. So for physical demonstrations, best practices is to preview what you're doing. Use close-ups, move smoothly and slowly, keep it short, and let the learners be in control of their learning, which kind of goes along with everything for overall for presentations. Controlled by the learner, that we give them examples, let them practice right away, like we're practicing with this video example. pick the best type of media, keep them active, and let them borrow different things that they might see online that would be relevant. Like this little clip that I have down here of PowerPoints and how you don't have to read every single bullet point. People can read. It's okay. When we are designing, we want to make sure that we're doing it for social learning. Let them use social media, provide feedback, let them create their own presentations, comment and discuss on presentations, give them links to related other resources, and edit and annotate the presentation. You can do that yourself so they can see your thinking, or let them do that so you can understand what they're thinking or their misconceptions or understandings while they're going through presentations. So Myers has 12 principles of multimedia, and I have kind of transformed these into my own words to give a better idea of it. So the different ideas would be that people learn better from words and pictures. Don't just use words alone. Some people are very visual and like a picture. We need to include material that supports what we're talking about and highlight the important things. To do that, we can use headings and vocal emphasis for the important things. Use animation and narration, but try not to be overkill and use on screen as well. Having too many things would make it hard for them. Have pictures near the text instead of far away from them. Narration and images should be presented simultaneously, and it should be user paced. They can pause, play whenever they need. Give the pre training on vocabulary or how to use the presentations. Don't overload it with different fonts, colors, images, different things like that. Use personal language. I'm talking to you and addressing you. I'm not doing it to a computer or just out to anyone. It is a conversation. This is my actual voice, so make sure you're using a human voice. And you don't always have to see the speaker to gain information. So here are some different examples of gifts from friends in the office that kind of show you that it can be a little bit of overload if you try to put everything in on one. These have visual, they have text, and I'm talking two right now, so it's a little too much. It's too much information. Why don't you explain this to me like I'm 5? PowerPoint, PowerPoint, PowerPoint. We need to make sure we're on level with them. Don't give them too much overload and give it to them in different ways. So hopefully you saw good examples of how bullet points can be used in good ways and make sure that they're concise, how you can present information in a logical way, and how there's good examples of voice and narration to go along with what's on screen. You don't always have to read everything. And then overall, a good example of how Myers' 12 principles of multimedia can be put into practice.